Jumpy thought about it for a moment. So, the transmitter's resonant events can be transmitted through the field and sent to the receiver. And then the transmitter can control the receiver. And then the receiver can control the receiver. Blub, jetzt habe ich zu schnell weggeklickt. That's what you're saying, right? Ich hoffe, man versteht das so einigermaßen. Also die eine Person kann dann gewissermaßen, ja, die andere Person kontrollieren. Das hat was mit Kontrolle zu tun. Yeah, yes, close enough at least. Come on, that's just crazy. Well, if you want to prove that, then you'll have to test it first. At least, that was how they thought. That was why they decided to do their experiment. That was how the Nonary project began. Snake suddenly looked very serious. Jumpy, have you ever heard of the Ganzfeld experiment? Jumpy nodded. Yeah, that was an experiment in telepathy, right? They put a pair of subjects in separate rooms. Then they showed one of them a picture and asked the other one what they saw. Interesting. I'm impressed. Yes, that is exactly correct. So, why'd you bring up the Ganzfeld experiment? It was used to screen subjects for the Nonary project. The hospital in a remote town was affiliated with Cradle Pharmaceutical. Hongo used it to conduct experiments on visiting children in secret. Some of them, he found, had potential. He began to gather children that showed promise. Children that seemed as though they might be able to access the field. Of course, none of them volunteered. They were kidnapped. His face barely moved as he spoke. There were 9 pairs of siblings taken, for 80 children total. For reasons that were not fully understood at the time, each pair had 1 transmitter and 1 receiver. They were split perfectly. As such, the 18 children were split into 2 groups of 9. The children who were put in group Q were the ones who excelled at transmitting. They were transferred to the mock experiment building known as Building Q in the Nevada desert. The children who excelled at receiving were put in Group A. The members of Group A were placed on the former hospital ship Gigantic. From the experiments he had conducted so far, Hongo had learned the following. There are 2 things that can increase one's resonance with the fields. The first is epiphany, the other is danger. Have you ever been faced with an especially difficult problem and thought about it very long and very hard until finally an answer suddenly appeared in your mind? It may seem obvious to say so, but that is what is meant by epiphany. The information obtained through that epiphany can be easily transmitted through the fields, where it can be easily interpreted. Adding danger to that equation allows for even easier field access. Therefore, Hongo set up a number of puzzles across the Gigantic. The participants had to solve each puzzle before they could move to the next room. Of course, he hadn't forgotten to include danger. More specifically, he had detonated a bomb on the hull of the Gigantic. The children in Group A were forced to play the Nonary game as the ship sunk. By forcing the children into a life or death situation, Hongo hoped to increase the likelihood of their tapping into the fields. The children from Group Q, on the other hand, were confined to the mock experiment building, Building Q. Building Q duplicated the interior and the puzzles of the Gigantic exactly. Hongo explained the situation to the children in Group Q. Solve the puzzles you find throughout the rooms. When you solve them, transmit that information to the children in Group A. If you succeed, they will be able to solve the puzzles and escape. But if you fail, then the Gigantic will sink and your brothers and sisters will drown. Do you know why the astronauts of Apollo 13 were able to return to Earth safely? It was because NASA had access to a replica of the Apollo 13 capsule. All of the equipment, the instruments, everything, all of it identical. NASA was able to replicate the situation the astronauts were facing. By putting themselves in the same situation, they attempted to solve the problems they knew the astronauts were experiencing. Once they had found solutions, they reported their findings to the men aboard the actual capsule. That was how they were able to return safely. It was the same with the gigantic and building Q. The children from Group Q had to use the power of epiphany to solve the puzzles they found and transmit what they learned through the fields. The children in Group A, however, had to access the fields to learn how they might advance to the next stage. That is the simplest explanation I can manage. Snake sounded defeated. His half-hearted attempt at derision served only to show how much the story had affected him. Just as Jumpy was about to speak. "Hey, Jumpy, Snake, how much longer are you two gonna sit around on those bony asses? Get down here already!" Seven's voice echoed up from below. Snake took a deep breath and blinked rapidly, as if just waking up from a long nap. "He's right. Let's go, shall we? We don't have much time. We need to get out of here, and soon." Snake headed for the stairs, but Jumpy put out an arm to stop him. "Hold it. There's one more thing I want to ask you. Are you sure that there were 18 kids? Why?" "Well, I thought it was only 16. "Oh, yes, that was what they said on the news, wasn't it?" "Yes, I have no doubt that 18 children were abducted and used in Hongo's experiment. After all, you couldn't exactly play a nonary game with any less, could you?" "Well, yeah, but are you saying that the news got it wrong?" "Yes, I am. There were 2 more children. However, they had no relatives that I'm aware of. I imagine no one filed a police report when they went missing. They were brother and sister, like Clover and I. The brother's name was Aoi. The sister's name was... her name was... Snake couldn't seem to bring himself to continue. It looked as if what he was about to say brought him great pain. Her name was Akane. That was the girl who died. Jumpy felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. His vision went blurry and his head felt light. He couldn't think straight. Everything was blank. Had Akane Kurashiki died 9 years ago? If she had, then who was June? No, that was impossible. It couldn't be true. Akane wasn't an uncommon name. If Snake had known her last name, then that would have been a different matter entirely. So they shared a name. There were many other people who did as well. It meant nothing. It was a different person. Of course, it was a different person. It had to be. Jumpy shook his head hard and pulled himself back to reality. Is something wrong, Jumpy? Your breathing sounds strange. Then Snake had noticed. Jumpy cleared his throat and tried to act calm. Oh, no, it's nothing. I'm fine. Let's get back down there, alright? Snake raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He headed down the stairs, Jumpy bringing up the rear. He couldn't bring himself to ask. He told himself he knew the answer already, but he couldn't bring himself to ask what the girl's last name had been. With every step he took, the cold, hard sound of feet against metal dug at his heart. Ist Akane Kurashiki wirklich vor 9 Jahren gestorben? Aber wer ist dann June? Das ist ein Mysterium, das wir noch lösen werden. So, jetzt geht's hier erstmal noch um Sheldrake. Sheldrake, this is it. This is what the shadow picture was pointing to. But didn't it say 5 at the end of the shadow picture? Yes, I think we need to find the 5th volume. Well, would you look at that? There's a big red button behind this book. I guess we should press this button. Jo. Selbstzerstörung aktiviert. Nerd, nein. Natürlich. Ta. What was that sound? It sounded like something really big was moving. It came from the top floor. Alright, let's go check it out. Gut. Dann gehen wir jetzt einfach mal schnell nach oben. Dop. Drehen uns einmal um die eigene Achse und gucken mal, was man hier hinten so machen kann. So. Alright, this handle's gonna open the door for me. Man, doesn't matter how hard we pull. This thing isn't going anywhere. Looks like it's probably locked. Blöd gelaufen. So, was haben wir hier in der Mitte? This looks like an output monitor. I bet the letters you type in on the keyboard will show up here. Well, I bet you've got to type something on that keyboard. Yeah, but you can only enter letters. And it looks like you only enter 4 letters. Let's see how it works. I guess you need to hit enter once you type in the letters. And you can erase what you typed with clear. Okay. I get the basic operations. Let's give it a shot. So. Eine ganz normale, handelsübliche Tastatur. Eine englische Tastatur, weil Y und Z ausgetauscht sind, aber egal. So, und wir haben hier römische Ziffern. Das ist die 13, die 14, die 10 und die 13. So, und wie können wir das Ganze jetzt in Einklang mit Buchstaben bringen? Nun, ganz einfach. Wir denken wieder an das Hexadezimalsystem und dann finden wir heraus, dass die 13 für D steht, die 14 für E, die 10 für A und 13 wieder für D. Mensch, ist der sympathisch. Dead. Open. Yay! You did it, Jumpy. It's unlocked now. Good job, Jumpy. Whoa there, don't get too excited. The password was dead, remember? Just makes me think whatever's waiting for us isn't good. So what? Jeez, you're such an old lady. We can't be worrying about stuff like that. I mean, come on. We got it to unlock, didn't we? Let's go, hurry up. Wo sie recht hat, hat sie vielleicht recht. Na gut. Alright, let's get this thing open. Ta. Das auf der linken Seite wäre übrigens immer noch verschlossen gewesen, nur so. You found it! Warum das so ist, das stellen wir gleich fest. The door opened, and Jumpy and the others leapt through it. But no sooner had they done so, than the clang of metal on metal rang out behind them. They spun around. The door they'd just come through had slammed shut. Jumpy grabbed hold of it with both hands and pulled with all his strength. Damn it! It looks like it locks automatically. Is there any other way out? Well, there's another door over on the right. There's a card reader next to it. It's got a red light on it, though, so I'm pretty sure it's locked too. But there is a card reader, right? Yeah. Then perhaps if we find a keycard, we could open the door and leave. Well, yeah, that might work, but... Hey, wait a minute. Are you saying we're gonna have to search through this room for one little card? Oh, man. They took a second look at the room they'd found themselves in. Heilloses Chaos. It was filled with piles upon piles of all manner of things. The only word that could describe it was chaotic. It was like a tornado had passed through, followed by a giant who had picked up and shaken the entire room a few times. Jumpy's heart fell. Clover and Seven looked as though they were about to cry. Well, we can sit down and wait to die, if that's what you prefer. I rather doubt that, however, so it would be wise to start looking. We haven't much time. Let's find that keycard. Oh, and the Neptune key as well. We won't be able to get through the hallway without it. Alright then, let's begin. Seek a way out. Ja, wo er recht hat, hat er recht, der gute Snake. Wir müssen uns hier ganz offenkundig ein bisschen umgucken, aber ich würde sagen, das machen wir beim nächsten Mal. So ein ganz klein bisschen merke ich, wie ich selber, weiß nicht, so ein komisches Müdigkeitsgefühl habe. Das zum einen und zum anderen bin ich einfach nur hungrig. Und von daher möchte ich mir an der Stelle einfach mal was zu essen gönnen und dann machen wir beim nächsten Mal weiter. Vielleicht bekomme ich es beim nächsten Mal sogar schon durch. Ich weiß nicht genau. 1,5 Stunden habe ich jetzt immerhin aufgenommen. Ich hatte, als ich angefangen hatte, gesagt, ich rechne so ungefähr mit 2 bis 3 Stunden. 3 Stunden scheint mir relativ realistisch. Relativ. Kommt drauf an, wie schnell ich eben durch diesen Raum hier durchkomme. Na gut. So, ansonsten, wir haben ziemlich viel herausgefunden. Ziemlich viele Dinge, mit denen ihr vielleicht nicht einverstanden seid oder wie auch immer. Oder die euch noch mehr Fragezeichen in den Kopf getrieben haben. Und ja, ich bemühe mich, dass ihr baldmöglichst da diesbezüglich eine Aufklärung bekommt. Und so weiter und so fort. Für den Moment soll es das aber gewesen sein. Ich war der Heringway. Das waren 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. Ich mache hier eine Pause und sage Tschö mit Ö. Und hoffentlich bis zur nächsten Aufnahme. Also bis ganz, ganz bald.